strikes hit over 30 targets at multiple locations, degrading a variety of Houthi capabilities. These included terrorist training sites, unmanned aerial vehicle infrastructure, weapons manufacturing capabilities, and weapons storage facilities. It also included a number of command and control centers, including a terrorist compound where we know several senior Houthi unmanned aerial vehicle experts were located. On Sunday, strike operations continued against additional headquarters locations, weapons storage facilities, as well as detection capabilities that have been used to threaten maritime shipping in the past. Today, the operation continues, and it will continue in the coming days until we achieve the president's objectives. It's a much broader set of targets that we've been able to action in this case. And the other key differences are the delegation of authorities from the president through Secretary Hegseth down to the operational commander. So that allows us to achieve a tempo of operations where we can react to opportunities that we see on the battlefield in order to continue to put pressure on the Houthis. We have some initial estimates. I hesitate to say what they are because they're very much estimates at this point, but I think in terms of dozens might be a safe overall characterization. On the civilian casualty side, no indications of any civilian casualties. We, of course, have seen some of the accusations by the Houthis. We look at those closely when they do come in, but we have no credible indications of any civilian casualties. Houthis claim to have tried to attack the Harry S. Truman. Quite frankly, it's hard to tell because while we're executing precision strikes, they missed by over 100 miles. I would just tell you their effectiveness, I would question anything that they claim in the press that they're doing or not doing. The Bashad is not currently being used for those operations, but we do know that other vessels are contemplated for those sorts of operations. We're watching very closely to see if they return to the AO.
I said that I think it's too much for me, and that's why we address it. I address the president, of course, for all our people, for Ukrainians, for our society, and a great honor to be here, and thank you for all your support. Thank you.
Okay, ready?
Ready. So we're out in the field in South Dakota shooting pheasants, and we're coming out here to a Milo field you can see behind us, and I was throwing in an ALP, someone else was using a tobacco product, and then somebody, and I'm not going to name names, pulled that out in public at a hunt. And so that's obviously yesterday. What we have here, ALP, is tomorrow, and we're going to make that official by symbolically ending the long reign of this product. Willie Robertson happened to be hunting with us. We don't have a mechanical fur, but we do have former U.S. Senator Rick Santorum of Pennsylvania. With an arm. Willie's got a 12 gauge. I've got my trusty 20, and we're going to see what we can do to usher out the Zen era. Yes! So, I should say, alppouch.com, for sale now, alppouch.com. Usher in tomorrow a brand new world of nicotine pouches, the American Lip Pillow, on sale now. Warning! This product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
And now, here's John Ritchie and L Todd Wood.
Well, there's Brent.
Good morning.
So, Brent, are you going to have like a Vietnam flashback with all that, that noise and sound of freedom going on there, man? Do I have to worry about you?
No, it was awesome. Sound of freedom.
So Brent is a classmate of mine from USAFA, the Air Force Academy, and he's an F-15 driver from the first Gulf War and flew for the Israeli Air Force flying attack jets, the A-4. I'm going to put you on the spot, Brent. This is our USAFA secret handshake here, man. So don't screw it up. Fast, neat, average.
Friendly, good.
Excellent, excellent. That's our only Air Force grads know that, and if you want to know what that's about, we'll talk offline. So I wanted to have you on because you're the go-to guy for Israel fighter jets, long range air attack operations. This is serious. What's going on in Yemen, right? I mean, this is a
Yeah.
big operation, correct?
Yeah, it's you know, if you watched over the last year and a half, our response to everything that's happened with the Houthis firing ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, drones, suicide ship drones, it's crazy. And the response from the Biden administration was limp at best, you know, an occasional attack here and there.
Yeah.
And obviously complete disruption of the Red Sea, Suez route, which impacted probably Europe more than it did the U.S. But nonetheless, it's, you know, it's a global economy, so you can't just ignore it. Yeah, that it actually risked a larger regional war by not reacting because Israel felt like it had no choice but to attack. So there was a couple of significant attacks that happened with them as
Yeah,
a result.
I heard I forget where somebody said there was a lot of deferred maintenance under the Biden administration that had to be cleaned up. I think that's
Yeah,
what's going on right now in
yeah,
Yemen. But yeah, so this is a major operation and still going on. You know, one thing I thought the briefing by that I didn't get his rank on the military operations.
right,
It struck me as a little arrogant. I mean, I don't want these guys to get arrogant.
right.
You know, we're the biggest, baddest out there, but they're sneaky and you know, asymmetric warfare is a thing. So
Yeah.
what do you think?
Well, I mean, on one hand, you say, yeah, okay, arrogant, but I think the other side to that is the military finally feels like it can flex its muscle a little bit,
That's true. Yeah.
and you know, it's not toxic masculinity anymore. It's like, you know, Trump said, "I want warriors in charge," and Hegseth said, "I want warriors in charge." I think that may be a little bit of that, maybe a
True.
little overcorrection, but nonetheless,
Yeah.
a feeling that again we can stand up and you know, flex our muscle when we need to. And obviously, Trump ran on, you know, we're not going to start new wars as part of his campaign. But at the same time, you know, some things had to be redressed, and this is one of them. It's impacted the global economy and letting. I mean, these are pirates and nothing more than pirates.
Yeah. It
This
goes
is
back
not.
to the Barbary Coast, right? Was
Yeah,
it Jefferson that did that
yeah,
operation? Yeah.
yeah. So this is that same kind of thing. Like we have to allow for shipping lanes. I mean, otherwise, what do you have a navy for? I mean, isn't that the whole point of the navy is to ensure, you know, uh, international trade routes and so on. So we're letting this little organization in Yemen basically dictate what happens in world shipping, and it's
Yeah.
unacceptable.
Well, so that's Yemen. Overnight surprise attack in Gaza.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that first, and I want to talk about Israeli politics. But right now it's just airstrikes, but I'm hearing possible ground invasion again. I mean, what are
Yeah.
you hearing from your sources?
It's the same kind of thing. I believe that there probably is a little bit less um, a desire to go in with ground forces. I think that's been pretty typical of the Netanyahu, you know, time in power over the last 12 plus years.
Hmm.
Is they prefer the airstrike. It's cleaner in a sense. They're not putting troops in harm's way. And I think this was actually a brilliant strike in that it really came out of nowhere, and it caught those guys like they were not in their tunnels. They were at home thinking, this is not going to restart again, because it was became very unpopular in the last, few months. And
Mm-hmm.
Israelis are protesting, saying we need our hostages back. But if they stopped negotiating, I think there was a warning, and
Well, there was a
wasn't
warning. I
needed.
mean, Witkoff has been in there trying to talking directly to Hamas, trying to get this
Right.
resolved and get the hostages out. Trump's made a big point on that. What targets could be left at this? I guess they still have a pretty big fighting force there, though, right?
Yeah, I think that when you look at what the outcome of the war up until today was it took out, obviously a huge number of senior leadership. They took out their rocket capability. They took out massive, amount of their tunnel complex. But when they started with the ceasefire, and they all came back out again in their little uniforms, and cheering on the release of hostages and release of bodies of children.
Mm-hmm.
It was a real, I mean, wow. I think Israel, and maybe a lot of the world saw that was a face of that evil that was there, that maybe they hadn't seen before. And again, it's, you see these kinds of things happen, you go, what are they thinking? Because they've just, in like, any kind of sympathy they might have had to have been reduced pretty dramatically by that scene with the two children, the coffins, and they're all
Was that
standing up clapping.
I'm pronouncing it wrong, Bibit's family or something like that?
Bebas, yeah.
Bibas, yeah. That was the
Yeah.
mother holding the two little boys,
Right.
that
Yeah.
were all murdered.
Right.
Brent, I want to go to a quick break. You got time for another segment, right?
Yeah, I do.
All right. This is Output. We'll be right back. Thanks. Stay with us.
It's news from the edge. It's Output with John Ritchie and L Todd Wood.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
If you haven't noticed, gold has reached a new high, all-time highs actually, and keeps going up every day. Why is that? It's because precious metals are a long-time historical store of value. And if you own a portfolio and you have assets in the fiat currencies, i.e. stocks, bonds, cash, or whatever, you're vulnerable to hyperinflation, which is coming as our debt explodes another trillion every 90 days. It's really scary. So how do you protect yourself? Go to Advisor Metals. If you look on any of our cdm.press sites, about halfway down, there's an ad for Advisor Metals. Click on it, fill out the form for your contact info, and Ira Bishotsky will contact you and talk to you. It's an easy conversation. There's no sales pitch. He's completely verified by us. He has a regulatory background we've checked into. We've checked with his bankers. We've checked with his IRA custodians for metals, and we can highly recommend Advisor Metals and IRA. So go to Advisor Metals. If you call them directly, tell them we sent you at CDM, and he'll definitely take care of you. But protect your portfolio, because you really need to. It's coming. Thank you. So this is Output. We're here with Brent Beecham. He's a former Air Force F-15 pilot and Israeli A-4 pilot, classmate of mine from the Air Force Academy. This is Output. I forgot to do the 5-point surge. This is March 18th, 2025, and here's your 5-point surge. War in the Middle East. U.S. sinks Iranian ship. We're going to talk about that shortly. Poroshenko calls Zelenskiy a dictator. The JFK files to be released today. Ukraine, will it be resolved today? And new Service Academy Board of Visitors. So, Brent, let's talk about Air Force, and now we'll get back to Israel. The new Board of Visitors at the Air Force Academy, that came out of the blue. Like all the military academies have new, because Biden had fired all the old Trump appointees, and
Right.
and we're bringing some heat back to the academies. That's a good thing. We got to stay on these guys. You know, some of them at Air Force, I didn't really think they had a lot of experience there. Maybe I'm wrong, but did you see the list?
I've seen part of the list. I haven't really delved too deeply into their backgrounds. There's so many other things going on right now.
Yeah, I know. Well, Charlie Kirk, for one of them, I mean,
Right.
you know, he's been very effective,
Yeah.
and obviously Trump wanted to reward him with something.
Yeah.
But I don't think he has much experience with the Air Force Academy. You know, we're going to try to reach out to him. If anybody in the audience has a line to Charlie Kirk, let me know, because we want to talk to him, because we started stars.us,
Right.
which really made an impact congressionally and across the Washington, D.C. landscape, trying to get the DEI and the original mission back to Air Force. But what in your mind needs to happen to make Air Force what we had as a really hard-in military experience?
Well, I mean, obviously, I think the core message is that we're creating warriors and not technocrats. We're not creating, DEI warriors, but guys that, and I think that, like, when we went, and again, the brown shoe days, everyone has memories of it. Was worse way
We had
back
to walk
when.
8 miles through the snow to get to school every day.
Yeah, but I think that I look back at that experience, and then I think there's a couple of different directions. They see this as a laboratory for creating officers. But on the other side of that, I think, is the sense that you've accomplished something. It's a test of your will to make it through that first year of the dually year. And Hell Week was something that I can always look back and draw and say, yeah, but draw and say, I thought my limit was here, but in all reality, that was a mental limit. And the minute you kind of broke through that mental limit, you realize that you had so much more to give. And that served well in combat. It served well in business. When things are going badly and you go, yeah, but I've always got something else to give. I've got more.
Exactly. I had that same experience. You know, it's like, you see, there was somebody saying that in the Red Sea, some of the naval personnel on the ships were like crying in the corners when they were getting shot at, and that definitely doesn't happen to people who went through what we went through. And the whole purpose was to instill something in you that no stress or strain will erase. I mean, that was the whole point, and it worked, right?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And I look now and I wonder, I hope that still there are people who still have the warrior mentality, who believe in everything, but you see the ones that pop up on social media occasionally, and you think, wow, we've really lost the plot here.
Yeah.
And I think maybe it takes some fresh eyes, maybe a Charlie Kirk, who can come in and see it from a fresh perspective. And I believe that that if we don't get back to that message, there's no point to have an academy. I remember back they used to cheer about UCLA, and that was a time frame where, like, we're not UCLA.
We're not UCLA in uniforms, right?
Yeah.
Or they don't even wear the uniforms anymore. They did until recently.
Right. And the fact that our classmate David Alvin had to come out and talk about dress code and standards for shaving and hygiene is shocking. That's
I don't
thing.
think people realize what the old standards were. I mean, you have. I think they're getting rid of the DEI, at least on paper, the surface, and it has to be ripped out at the roots. But I don't think anybody's working on the fourth class system to return it. That's because I had a West Point. I was on a West Point call with a bunch of grads recently, and one guy from the academy, who's kind of like the rep to like hear what the old grads are saying and counter any narratives, is like, well, we don't want to haze people. I'm like, dude, that wasn't hazing. That was training. That's what they use that word on purpose, because they don't want us to be trained. They don't want new cadets to be trained like we were trained, where it's just, I mean, you've literally been through the fire.
Yeah.
I mean, and for 4 years. And
Yeah,
that,
they took out Siri out of the program as well, and again, maybe it's a cost saving thing, but in all reality, everybody who went through that program again was
yeah,
tested mentally and physically. Um, Again, those are all lessons I think that serve you well uh, throughout the rest of your life, because you're going to face some difficulties in your life, whether
mhm,
they're personal or family or military. Those are all things that everyone served well by being tested, and this a
yeah,
perfect laboratory for testing that. And otherwise, why have an academy? Just run ROTC out of the local universities, and just fill the officer corps with people that are not quite so, and it's very costly to do. And
yeah.
I saw, when I was back on the 33, I didn't go to the 35, but
Mhm.
it was a shocking sight to see.
Yeah, I mean, there was some real disappointments there, which we've all, and that's what started this whole movement to fix the
Yeah,
academies because we saw it early. So yeah, I want to focus on the fourth class system. So we're going to try to
yeah,
get to those board of visitors people because, and also the Siri. That's a good point. The survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. Because when you get put in a prison camp for a week and get abused like that, I
yeah.
mean, nothing really else matters, right? I mean,
And
they can't
I
do anything
still
to you.
remember Comrade Malka was our prison guard, and he was a big guy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So let's get back to Israel. Well, the region.
Yeah,
We sunk a ship, an Iranian ship, which is only, I did some research, it's only a 2 months old.
right.
That was
Yeah,
their intel ship, and sunk it. That was U.S. Air Force or U.S. Navy, probably.
right. Yeah.
So, wow, that's a big deal. It's a big ship too. Did you see it?
Yeah, I saw that, and
Mhm.
like you said, it was a brand new ship. It was an intel gathering ship. Whether they were gathering intel on shipping or U.S. Navy or on Israeli activities, it's remains to be seen. But obviously,
Mhm.
it was a threat, and you know, I think there's been some denials on the Iranian part that happened, but
Mhm.
um, the fact that somebody decided to go sink a ship, that's a pretty big escalation. And so, I mean, to go in the high seas and take out a Navy ship.
Yeah, it is. Well, that gets me to my point. I mean, we're here. This is a big war, right? I mean, we're
Yeah,
at war with Iran essentially right now, and
it,
that concerns me because I
yeah,
think there's been a big push for that. I mean, what do
yeah.
you think?
It seems that way, but I think again, I wrote about this previously, but I think that
On
it
armedforces.press, by the way, for our
right,
listeners. Yeah.
yeah. So I think Iran got a message from the Israeli Air Force last year when they flew unopposed completely from the Air Force, from air defenses,
Hmm.
and they have to feel very vulnerable right now. I mean, I'm talking about the leadership
Hmm.
and maybe their nuclear program.
Yeah,
I
because
think,
they were taking out guys in buildings
yeah,
from the ground,
yeah,
a
and
few months
yeah,
back. Yeah.
right. So I think that Iran would be treading pretty lightly right now. They've lost
Hmm.
their foothold in Syria. They lost their foothold to a degree in Lebanon. Hezbollah is weakened pretty dramatically.
Hmm.
The Gaza, with Hamas, and then look at now what's happened to the Houthis. Their last place where they could launch offensive capability that wasn't directly from Iran is effectively being destroyed. So I think that the Iranians have to be circling back, thinking, okay, the next target's us.
Hmm.
Do we really want to do that? And I think I
That's part of what all this is, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
But you look, I mean, Israel's striking targets still in Lebanon, in Syria,
I was
very
going to ask about
strategically.
Syria, Damascus. I mean, they're hitting HTS in Damascus because they're
Yeah,
worried about this, Islamic force from the north as well, which is
yeah,
Turkey.
yeah. And interestingly enough, the Syrian, HTS is going after Hezbollah forces in Lebanon. So
Hmm.
it's this whole thing is kind of it's simmering a bit. I don't think it's like all out full scale war, but it's certainly there's some very strategic strikes going on against leadership and against high value targets like missile launching capability, missile production, weapons production, and so on. But I think the next obvious thing for the Trump administration, if they don't want to go to full scale war with Iran, and I hope they don't, but if they did, I think it would be. I think Iran is in deep trouble if they do. So I think the Iranians can't be they can't be unaware that a strike against them is going to be devastating. Whatever they thought they had in terms of capability was laid bare last year.
Well, it's essentially Trump taking the gloves off. And I noticed that the gentleman who was doing the briefing said that, commanders have been given authority. So, I mean, he's like, do this, get this done. And then they get to do what they want to do, which is radically different from usually Democratic administrations. A few minutes left. I know you got to go, but let's talk politics in Israel. So Netanyahu is he's being prosecuted. There's also a lot of, theories and rumors about October 7th or whatever and his involvement or whatever. I'm not making a claim there, but people are upset that the hostages are not back. And all of a sudden we get a new war in Gaza. So is that connected or is it not? I mean, what do you think? I mean, I talked to Niv Kaplan, your good friend, yesterday on the show, and he didn't have good things to say about the prime minister, but go ahead. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I think Netanyahu, when this war ends and they do, in fact, do a more top-down analysis of what happened, the army has done its own analysis to date, and there's a lot of blame going around within the military. They didn't see it coming. They dismissed, but the dismissal starts at the top. That everyone believed that Hamas, the only capability they had was to fire rockets. Israel has an Iron Dome. They're going to shoot them down. There was this sort of, we'll let you shoot some and we'll shoot your stuff down. And then everybody go back to a ceasefire. I think everyone has seen through that tactic, that it didn't work, that it led to disaster. It led to a disaster on October 7th. And then on top of that, hundreds of soldiers have died in combat since. Hostages are still not home.
How many are left? Do you know? I haven't even.
Well, the question is how many are alive?
Right.
And I think it's not I think there's probably 30 or 40 that are still alive at this point.
That's a lot, though.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah. But I think that Netanyahu has seen an expiration date on his leadership of the country, and I think people are ready to move on. The problem is that kind of like the Democrats here, there is nobody to replace him. There's all kinds of like we would like to get rid of Bibi, and then you go, okay, so who's the next guy up?
Right.
And not within the Likud party, because Bibi's taken them all out over the years to preserve power within the Likud. And then, the center left parties have run people that really just have not been very effective. But I think that it's a catch-22. The Ben Gvir branch of what's going on the right.
He's coming back in the government, he says.
Yeah. And man, I think that so many people are tired of him and his characters that have been in charge, for the last few years. And whatever the next election happens, if the center can find somebody who can challenge Bibi, I think that there could be a real upheaval in the government.
Interesting. Well, Brent, I know you got to go. Thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate you giving us a little bit this morning. Because tell people about your company and where they can find you.
Yeah, I'm a real estate developer in the North Atlanta area, Market District Development, and you can find us on marketdistricts.com. We're doing some really interesting work in revitalizing downtowns and the Atlanta area.
Yeah, you are. I mean, go up to Alpha, not
Alpharetta, Milton,
yeah,
Roswell,
Crab
so on.
Apple, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, my friend. Thank you. We'll be right back on
Thank
Output.
you.
It's News from the Edge. It's Output with John Ritchie and L Todd Wood.
Through the pandemic, we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. The stores were shut down and doctors' offices were shut down. And even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people who died with COVID, they died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
I'm watching my friends gain more and more weight. And then eventually, I got to tell you, this is a little dark, but bad diet literally killed my whole crew.
Wow.
Diabetes, a stroke. I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's like you had a stroke. You're not even 50 years old. You guys got to quit eating this stuff. Your body knows what's what. You are not conscious of this. But that's why people will go to the refrigerator and they'll grab this and that and the other and put together this outrageously elaborate combination of foods. Your body's trying to reach balance. Unbeknownst to us, our bodies are always trying to reach homeostasis. You can't eat all of this stuff and expect to live a long time. And one thing led to another, and I went, forget this. We're going to make our own product. So we partnered with one of the world's top 3 biochemists where nutrition-specific study is concerned. I said, all I want is the best nutritional and immune support product in the world. So we mixed it in yogurt. It's a powder. I got a bag of it here. I keep one on the console all the time, just so I can show people.
Yeah.
And it's a powder. Now, this is not candy. This is hardcore nutrition, and sugar is an enemy. And most people do not know that the reason these bellies are showing up on people all over the place, your body makes fat to store the toxins it can't get rid of. So it just puts them over here. But I can tell you this, you take this for 30 days and then lay off of it for 2 or 3 days, and you'll go, good grief, give me some more. Skin, nails, hair growing back. Cut yourself and it heals in half the time.
So this is the Nucleo Boost. We use it here at CDM often. We are very focused on nutrition, and this gets us through the day. It's for me, it's the stamina, and it's also helped with some of the autoimmune stuff we've had after COVID. But check it out. If you get the subscription, it's much cheaper. But go to cdmnutrition.com for our audio audience. I wanted to walk through a few things. One, I'm going to play a video from Zelenskiy and Macron meeting each other, and then we'll talk about it.
I said that I think it's too much for me, and that's why we address it. I address the president, of course, for all our people, for Ukrainians, for our society, and a great honor to be here, and thank you for all your support. Thank you. Thank you
So that was definitely a bromance. I think they should get a room, but you got to understand what's going on there. So Zelensky is likely to be shut down by the Trump administration. And so he's traveling all over Europe to get support and arms and money. And France is all in because, as I've said many times before, Zelensky, Macron, Biden, they're not working for the people of their own countries. They're working for somebody else. And Zelensky and Macron especially. And if you look at the whole picture, it's very similar. Two guys, you can, just a fact, you can talk about their sexuality. That's similar. They are leaders that were selected and kept in power against the will of the people. Poroshenko, who is the Ukrainian former president, came out today and said, yes, Zelensky is a dictator. And Trump has said that many times and has taken a lot of slack for it, especially from the EU, saying, no, he's not a dictator, it's a war. Well, he is. He's canceled elections. He won't hold elections, even if there's peace, he said. Even if there's a ceasefire, he won't hold elections because he can't relinquish power of Ukraine. It's like Trump. If they get somebody else in there, all this bad stuff may happen to the globalists. So that's really important. Now, Petro Poroshenko, who is the chocolate king, a former oligarch who made sweets for Ukraine, he was president, and we were on the ground in Ukraine since 15 on, and really digging into his whole nefarious reign he had in Ukraine. He was laundering hundreds of millions of dollars through the central bank. We came out with evidence. It's on cdm.press. If you just search Poroshenko money laundering, you can see the literally the slide from the prosecutor's office where we went in detail on how he was doing this carousel where the U.S. would give aid to the central bank, and then the central bank would sell bonds to a local third-party dealer who was, of course, tied to Poroshenko. This broker dealer would take the bonds, say at 97 out of 100, and sell them back at par at full price and pocket the difference, and the difference would go offshore to accounts for the oligarchs in government. So this is what has been going on, and so Poroshenko he wants power. That's why he's coming out and saying Zelensky's a dictator, which Zelensky obviously is a dictator, but he wants power. So you got to understand really what's going on there in Ukraine. It's really important. So we're going to have shortly Ira on from Advisor Metals, and we're going to talk about why metals are a good buy and what's going on in the gold markets. We're all into capital markets here. He's coming on in a few minutes. And then at the top of the hour, we're going to have Kurt Brakob, who is the editor of the Balkan.press, a CDM property and a CDM website, which covers the Balkans, global Balkan news without the globalist spin. The Balkans are one of the most globalized places in the world by the U.S. State Department. So Kurt and I are going to talk that. We're going to talk Romania. Excuse me. We're going to talk Bosnia. So a lot to come. Kurt will be at the top of the hour. And I want to talk with Ira about the economy and the BRICS looking to pull in a new currency. And there's just a lot of stuff going on. So, by the way, cdm.press. Go to cdm.press, put us in your daily scan. If you come in the morning, we put a lot of effort into getting the best stories out there that we can find that are the most critical that you need to know to start your day, to be effective around the water cooler at work, to talk to your boss, to deal with customers. You need to know what's going on in the world. And I guarantee you there's nowhere else you're going to get this kind of news that is as informative. We can't cover everything, but we cover what is important and what you need to know. We may not cover, the latest Carolyn Levitt, destroys a reporter at the White House. You may not get that, but you'll get, how the Iranian ship was sunk by U.S. air power overnight. So we're not Conservative Inc. We are a global wire service that is bringing you the truth. So go to cdm.press. One of the ways you can really help us is put us in your scan in the morning and in the evening. We're on all the podcast providers. If you want to listen in your car later, it's always there for download. Also on Rumble, on X, on Getter, on YouTube. We're back on YouTube. We can't stream there because we have to check the content every day to make sure we don't get another strike, which we did the other day. So we're trying to stay on YouTube. So that won't be live streamed, but you'll always be able to download it. All of our shows, actually, and all the clips that we do. So find us, download us, and listen to us. On podcasts, you can get it. You can turn it up 2 times as fast, get to it twice as fast. But you'll especially get the information that you need to know to act smart to your boss and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to go to another break. We have a long segment with Ira Bishotsky coming up. And so we'll be right back after this break, and we'll talk to him. Thanks.
It's News from the Edge. It's Output with John Ritchie and L Todd Wood.
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, these are 2 medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They are very, very inexpensive. Interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada. You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these, and we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
Our world is changing rapidly. Many crucial systems we depend upon are collapsing. And the most important system that is failing is the food supply.
Mr. President, this Council is more than aware of the multiple challenges and threats the world is facing today. But the threat of famine, people starving slowly to death, must be a red line.
These food prices are going to keep going up and up, and they're going to keep feeding excuse after excuse, narrative after narrative.
Yeah,
so you're going to have to get off that treadmill and start getting more autonomous with your own food growing.
You want to make sure that you can eat, because frankly, food is the biggest issue as we are going through these transitions.
But amidst the chaos, there is a path to resilience. Marjorie Wildcraft is the female leader of the survival and preparedness movement. Marjorie has taught millions of people how to grow an abundance of food in a grid-down situation, even if you have no experience, are older, or out of shape.
I've spent decades finding the fastest, easiest, and funnest ways for the average person to be able to grow a lot of food. I've created a step-by-step process that's so simple that even kids to elders have been using it in order to grow a lot of their own food. And you can too, even if you have no experience, you're older, or you're out of shape.
Growing your own food is like printing your own money. Get started today.
So we're happy to have with us Ira Bishotsky. I'm going to bring him on now. Ira, thanks for coming on, man. Really appreciate you carving some time out.
Always a pleasure to be here. And, I was backstage when you were talking about how CDM has, the inside story, or however you want to describe it. Yeah. And back in the early 90s, I was a subscriber to this newsletter called Intelligence Digest. It was the same thing. It wasn't the headlines of the day. It was similar to what you're talking about with, how did the U.S. military get the Houthis.
Yeah.
And that's what's real important and significant. And it's not, what Carolyn Leavitt says in the morning. Other people are doing that, but you're doing the real important stuff. Not that the other stuff isn't important.
Well, that's great feedback. I mean, everybody has limited resources. And so we're going to spend our time talking about how the Iranian intel ship that's 2 months old was sunk rather than, the latest reporter that was destroyed by Carolyn Leavitt. So, it's just a question of priorities, and we want this to be informative, impactful, hard-hitting, real, so literally you can go to the water cooler and say, hey, did you see that ship that was sunk? And you'll be smarter than everybody else. So that's the whole goal. But let's talk markets. I was looking at the gold market before you came on, and we're at all-time highs, right? And same with silver, or very close, bouncing around the top.
Well, no, with gold, I mean, gold's all-time high. And, I always talk in general about markets. So this time I'm going to veer off a little bit and make it about me. Because
Good.
I have my blog post that I've been, post every week or two. And, I think you repost it. And I've been saying for months and months and months, it's the metals are going up, and there's so many reasons. I mean, I was institutional equities trader for over 3 decades. You were on a trade desk for many years. And, when you see it, I mean, I'm a chartist, I'm a technical analyst. I've been looking at the charts for decades. And the 50 and 200-day moving averages are what the big money looks at, the hedge funds, the mutual fund managers. Those have been pointing up, and the prices for gold and silver have been above them for a very long time. And that's one indicator that the prices were going to move higher. On silver in particular, you have the gold-silver ratio. How many ounces of silver does it take to buy 1 ounce of gold? And over years and years, it was maybe 15, then it kind of averaged around 50. And the last few years, if it's above 85, usually means silver is going to make a pop. For the last week or two, it's been above 85. It was 92, 90, I think it was 87, 88 this morning. And what's silver done? It's made a pop. I think the spot price is like $34 or something, or a little more this morning. So you've got, those two that you're looking at. And on the fundamental side, well, I'm sorry, there's one more thing on the technical part.
Yeah.
So on the trade desk, we learned that the second time through is what really counts. So gold's now, I think, over $35 today, up or something. It's like 3,030 or something. So it went above $30, I think, $3,000 yesterday per ounce. Then it came in a little bit, which means it went below 3,000. So that was the first time through. Today is the second time through, and it just blasted through it. And the same thing happened when the all-time high was 2,060, I think, over a year ago. And it went through it. It was flirting around with it. And I'm writing, in my posts, I'm saying, once it goes through, it's going to keep going.
Yeah,
and
man.
That was, $800-900 ago.
Well, I got to give you creds, because you have been spot on it, like, for months. You and I have talked it offline. Like, he's like, this is such a buying opportunity. And I mean, because of the macro situation, but also, like you say, the technical situation. And when you have those two aligned, I mean, that's really impactful, right, to the price?
Yeah, absolutely. And everything is in the price. And even as you're saying on the fundamentals, it's the same thing. And just the momentum has been there. And I'm telling people, either buy on the dip or buy on the momentum. Either way, just buy. And whether it's
and
gold,
this isn't I mean, this isn't a trade for our audience. I mean, there may be some traders out there, but this is a long-term play to protect your portfolio, right? I mean, to protect your purchasing power, because as you've said before, your whole life's work may be in your IRA. You may have rolled over your 401k. You got $500,000 in there. And, if we have and you're older and you have a market correction, you could have a real impact on your portfolio and your lifestyle, right? I mean, so
I'll tell you a very specific story. My sister, who's a little older than me, she's 76, 77 years old. A few years ago, she called me up and said, Ira, you've been in the markets for many years. I have a financial advisor, and, they're saying, stay in the market, whatever. What do you think? I told her, I said, look, if I tell you to stay in the market and it goes down, you're going to be mad at me. If I say, get out of the market, it goes up, you're going to be mad at me. He said, but here's the thing. How many years of experience does this person have? Oh, maybe 9 or 10. So they don't know when the markets drop 40, 50%. And I said, my sister was a little over 70 at the time. And Todd, this is the exact point that you just brought up. So between the year 2000 and the year 2014, equity markets were dead money. Money.
Yeah.
So I said, Gail, you're 70. You're going to wait till you're 84 to get your money back, potentially. I said, no, it doesn't make sense. You've got to diversify out. And, that's just the way the markets are. But, with metals in the mid-teens here, 2011, 18, whatever, they had a little sideways movement. And now they just, are blasting forward, as you said, from the fundamentals as well as the technicals.
And the fundamentals are that we had Ed Dowd on a couple days ago on the show. And, essentially we are looking at a place where the economy's got to go through some pain because we're restructuring the entire U.S. economy from Wall Street to Main Street, right? I mean, they're putting back real sound money principles. They are bringing back manufacturing. They are gonna make some changes in the tax code, likely to stop some of the excesses on Wall Street. But we're gonna have to go through some pain while we try to deal with the debt, while we deal with that restructuring. So there's some pain, but the long term will be probably the golden age. But who knows how long this pain will last? 6 months, a year, 2 years. Am I right?
Oh, absolutely. There's with any transition, either personally or professionally or in business and the economy, you have that transition. I mean, look at back in 1980, Paul Volcker raised interest rates to 21, short-term rates over 21%. And people now they're going, oh gosh, 6, 7%. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, go through 21%. I was there then, 1980 when I first got in the markets. And there was a disruption for a year or two, but he said, look, I'm going to wring inflation out of the economy. And he did until Biden got in office, however, 20 odd years, 30, 40 odd years later.
Right.
So yeah, there'll be a little short-term pain, but the long-term gain will so much outweigh the short-term. And in the meantime, gold and silver will go up.
What do you think about the efforts by the BRICS nations to establish, a gold-backed currency or some kind of commodity basket, to rival the U.S. dollar? What are your thoughts about that?
I was just reading about it a couple of weeks ago where their effort is kind of falling apart a bit. So, they can attempt to do it, but still the dollar is king, if you will. But the king even sometimes, goes down. And if the dollar wasn't weakening as it is, then gold, would go up because they go opposite each other. So even regardless of what the BRICS do, we're still in with Trump in office. They're seeing that, the new sheriff in town, if you want to use that expression, that he's not a pushover. And so what they're attempting to do, he'll put on sanctions or whatever it is. And they're seeing that. I mean, look what he's done with South Africa. He's recalled the ambassador or told the ambassador to leave. Rubio told the ambassador to leave. He's not giving them money. I mean, he's standing up for what he believes in and for what he got elected for.
We've had a little pickup on interest on precious metals through our CDM channel with you recently, but what are you hearing in the markets? Are people behind the curve? Are they coming to you and saying, look, what do I do? I mean, what do you think?
Exactly. They are coming to me because they know of all my years of experience. And, it's okay to talk to a 25-year-old newbie who's reading from a script. But I was one myself. But, you don't want to do that.
Yeah, everybody has to start somewhere, right?
People are coming to me and they're saying, what percentage of my portfolio should be in gold? What about silver? What are you thinking about that now? So people are asking, and with what percentage should be in gold? I mean, Ray Dalio from this Bridgewater, I think he's saying 10, 15%. But I was telling this customer the other day, it's all individual. It depends on their goals and aspirations. I had one customer a few years ago, 2016, 17. He put his several $100,000, his entire retirement, 100% into gold. And gold was 1,800 at the time. Now he's up over 50% in 7 years. Other people do a smaller percentage. It depends on where they are in their life at the time. I mean, I'm in my late 60s. But I have a small percentage in gold because I'm building a business. I've got two relatively. My son's 20, my daughter's 17. So, college and things. So I'm in a different place than other people my age. So it really depends on their own circumstances, but definitely have physical precious metals in your portfolio. Absolutely.
We've had a lot of good feedback from our relationship with you. And one, by the way, we did a big background check on you. You're one of the only, I think the only regulated CTFC gold dealer in the market, which is, significant. But we've had a lot of good feedback that, we've all seen Wall Street, the boiler rooms, who wears the pants in the family, put it $10,000 in silver right now. You're not like that. I mean, it's a more discussion, right? Is how you go about things.
Yeah. And I joke with people. People say, well, all right, how do you talk with people? I go, I talk with them like they're in the living room. Like I'm in their living room with them. I go, what do you say? I go, nice couch. I'll talk with people 30 minutes, 45 minutes. And I'll just offhandedly say, have you heard a sales pitch in the last 45 minutes? They'll say no. because nobody wants that, and I've been at it, 40 odd years, and they just want, as you say, just a discussion. And that's, that's what I do. I see what their goals and aspirations are, what their concerns are, and we move, around that way.
So you can go to cdmmetals.com for our audio audience, cdmmetals.com, and you can fill out that form, and Ira will get in touch with you to have that discussion. Well, tell us about the process. Somebody contacts you through us, you call you directly, your phone number is on our site, tell them you're from CDM, but what happens then? What's your process?
Well, then I talk with them. I find out what their concerns are. Again, their goals and aspirations. I tell them about the metals, and they ask a lot of questions. Well, if it's in, if it's a retirement account, is it physical? Is it a certificate? I said, well, it's physical. So there's two ways to purchase physical precious metals. One's what we call the cash buy, which is wired funds. We only accept that for compliance purposes. So they wire in the funds. We do the transaction. Within a day or two, sometimes same day, the metals get shipped out to them. I pay the shipping and insurance, and they get the tracking number. It's all very, very above board. I work with a wholesaler like all my competitors do, and that's where the metals come from. And the other way, with a retirement rollover, and some people do one of each, some people do both, they work directly with a self-directed IRA custodian, and they set up the account there. Then that custodian does all the heavy lifting to move the funds from their current custodian to them. Once the funds are there, then we do the transaction, the metals purchase. Then by IRS rules, the metals need to be stored at a third-party depository. And there are several around the country, and the metals are shipped directly there. And so instead of their previous custodian, which they don't have to move all their funds, they can move whatever they choose, usually 10,000 or more for a rollover. So they will get the funds with the custodian, and then at the depository, and they get their account statement. So instead of like in their old custodian, the metals, their mutual funds, whatever, are on a server. This time it's actually physical. They actually have a physical metal. They can actually visit the metals, and so there's different depositories around the country. And and it's all flat fees by the custodian and the depository. $250 or so is all they pay. Outside of what I pay, that's for the custodian and depository. And Todd, if I may mention for a moment, you mentioned the CFTC, the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. So I have ethical considerations, rules and regulations I have to follow. I had to pass a test. I didn't just pay $600 to sign up for an industry group. I had to pass a test, and I have to file a report every year, just about my address and things like that. No customer information. Plus, I'm subject to a short notice audit or a same day audit to make sure all my books and records are accurate. No one in this industry has that. So if I'm doing anything that's untoward or shouldn't, I don't want the feds breathing down my neck. So it's a whole different scenario than my competitors.
No, it's been very pleasant, and we've had great feedback from our viewers working with you, and I really appreciate that. And this is a marathon. We're in it for the long haul to take care of the customers and make sure everybody's happy. So, Ira, where can people follow you? Anything else you want to get out?
Yeah, just we're low margin bullion. We just do the basic, what I call basic bars and coins. No collectible coins or anything, because they'll say, then there's some extra intrinsic value. But then you're gambling, because that extra value is going to move by supply and demand outside of the basic metal, which is going to move by supply and demand. So if you have gold, an ounce of gold goes up $1, you made $1. Goes down $1, you lost $1. But with these collectible type coins, unless of course you're a collector, besides that movement up or down, you've got the extra intrinsic value, that premium value that's going to move up and down. You're not a gambler. You're doing this to protect your portfolio. So people can reach me by at the website advisormetals.com, advisormetals.com. They can reach me directly, and on that site there's our blog posts and things like that. And always mention CDM. If you reach out to me, always mention Todd and CDM. They can reach me directly, Ira at advisormetals.com. Phone number 626-788-5770. But CDM, always mention CDM.
And you can go to CDM Metals too. All right, thanks. We'll have you back. I really appreciate your insight. So take care.
Thanks.
It's News from the Edge. It's Output with John Ritchie and L Todd Wood.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Order online fast and save $45. Your kit with prescriptions to treat common and life-saving illnesses is rushed to your door. Visit twc.health/CDM, promo code CDM. That's twc.health/CDM, promo code CDM.
This is a special report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
So we pride ourselves on CDM, as I was talking about with Ira and others, on bringing it to you from the source, reporters in the field, reporters on the ground. So here we go. Watch this. I'm going to do something here. So we're going to bring in Kurt Brakov directly from Europe. Kurt is the editor of the Balkan.press for CDM, and he's also the CEO of historyofbooks.com, where we have a joint venture, Vindicta Publishing. Kurt, welcome. Thank you for coming on. I know you just got back from Europe, so I had to get you up early, and you're probably jet lagged, but thanks for coming on, man.
Good to see you.
What's that?
I said a little bit. Good to see you.
Yeah. Thank you. So, well, first of all, tell us about your trip. What were you doing over there?
Well, we just came back from the London Book Fair, which is the largest book event really in the world in the spring, followed up in the fall by the Frankfurt Book Fair. So we're there, representing all of our titles and including the books that we do together with Vindicta Publishing, and doing a lot of book business, and then also spent a little bit of time over in Poland where we're working on a book together with Deutsche Welle, the news agency, about Polish children who were taken by the Nazis during World War II and forcibly Germanized.
Interesting.
So it's a really interesting book, and it's due out this fall. We plan to be launching that at the Frankfurt Book Fair. So a little bit of advanced work on that project as well, and then spent a little bit of time in Hungary also, which is always a beautiful place to be.
So that's why I wanted to have you on the show, because in Hungary and in Serbia, you've got a color revolution going on, or attempted one, and it's obvious. I mean, we know the playbook now, and we know it's interesting that even though the USAID funding's been cut off, they still managed to get a million or so people in both locations, it seems like. Let's start with Hungary. What's happening there, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, keep in mind, you have George Soros behind a lot of this. I mean, he's really the driving force with all the NGOs that are in his orbit. And, you have the EU, which is adamantly against Orban in Hungary. I mean, he's been a thorn in their side for a very long time, so they would love to bring him down. And Serbia also, I mean, it falls into that same paradigm, but they no, what you're seeing right now is really a continuation. I mean, the Democratic Party may not be in power in the United States, but it certainly is calling the shots, with the EU, and George Soros is an integral part of that as well. So those forces, despite the best efforts of the current administration, it's a war out there, and it's continuing. And it's not just that; it's what we're seeing going on in Romania as well. The whole region is a battleground. I mean, it's always been the Balkans and in Eastern Europe have always been a battleground, really, between East and West. It was that way during the Cold War. It was that way during the Ottoman Empire. Before that, I mean, going back to Roman times, it's been a battleground between East and West. I mean, if you read Herodotus and things, you learn all about this. So it's historically, it's nothing has really changed.
There's a reason they call it the term Balkanized. I mean, right? Because I mean that stereotype is there for a reason, because you had this conflict, this crash between East and West, Muslim and Christian, and wow, that's just still going on right now.
Yeah, it's not ending. And what they're doing in Bosnia, I mean, it's just a long list of things that are happening in the region right now. And it's dangerous times in which we live. And of course, the longer that the war in Ukraine drags out, the more cover that they have to try to to undertake these color revolutions and other nefarious activities throughout the region, because that frankly it detracts a lot of attention away from what's going on. I mean, people here don't really know what's happening in that part of the world.
Well, we're trying to fix that, but I want to throw up. We just put up an article this morning from one of the writers in the region on what's going on in Bosnia. So you can go to the Balkan.press and check that out. It's also on CDM.press. Tell us what's happening in Bosnia. Give us the 30,000-foot overview of the situation.
Well, in Bosnia, what you have going on is it's always been since the war in the 90s, when Clinton intervened there and tried to really create a Muslim state within Europe, which is effectively what they did. Bosnia has been under this very weird system where it's ruled by what they call a high representative, who's someone who's appointed to this position. It used to be that they had to be appointed and approved by the UN Security Council. I mean, that's what the actual treaty says. But of course, when they decided they were going to exclude Russia from the international community, then they just went ahead and appointed their own, regardless, who's completely biased German globalist named Christian Schmidt, who is the current high representative there, and he basically rules as a dictator. I mean, he issues a decree, and that has the force of law. So it's a true dictatorship, and it's being ruled exclusively in favor of the Muslim minority in the country, which is controlling things, and to the detriment of the Serbs. Now Bosnia has been split into two separate entities, which, according to the Dayton Agreement, were supposed to be indeed separate entities with ruling, self-governing within the larger state of Bosnia. But the larger state of Bosnia was not supposed to be a federal state that could impose its dictate on either of the two entities. However, that's all been changed, with this high representative and others that are trying to really basically impose, impose the will of the federal state, which is essentially the will of the Muslim state. So really denying the rights of the Serbs there. And what they did is they went ahead and decided they were going to prosecute in one of their federal courts, which really has no legal jurisdiction over the matter, but they decided they were going to prosecute the president of the Serbian entity,
right,
Milorad Dodik, and they convicted him and sentenced him to a year in prison. And this has created a huge crisis because obviously the Serbs aren't going to put up with that.
And the crime, Kurt, let me interrupt, was that he criticized the High Representative. Am I correct in that?
Well, yeah, and actually, he wouldn't enforce some of those dictates, which really violated the Dayton Agreement to begin with. They're trying to seize property, and other things. So I mean, it's just been, they've been pushing and pushing the Serb entity, Republika Srpska is called. They've been pushing it really to have no choice but to declare independence, which they can use as a de facto declaration of war then, and try to just federalize Bosnia into one unified state. So it's a very dangerous situation there at the present time, and it's sad that we're not seeing enough from our own administration. Our own Department of State has sadly not intervened to try to maintain some sort of equilibrium. They're basically continuing the policy of the Biden administration and backing the Muslim entity there, which is a very dangerous thing for all of Europe.
So we're going to take a quick break. You can do another segment, right?
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to talk Romania, and then I want to talk books and the whole book industry with you, but we'll be right back after this short break.
It's News from the Edge. It's Output with John Ritchie and L Todd Wood.
Our world is changing rapidly. Many crucial systems we depend upon are collapsing. And the most important system that is failing is the food supply.
Mr. President, this Council is more than aware of the multiple challenges and threats the world is facing today. But the threat of famine, people starving slowly to death, must be a red line.
These food prices are going to keep going up, and they're going to keep feeding excuse after excuse, narrative after narrative.
Yeah.
Where you're going to have to get off that treadmill and start getting more autonomous with your own food growing.
You want to make sure that you can eat, because frankly, food is the biggest issue as we are going through these transitions.
But amidst the chaos, there is a path to resilience. Marjorie Wildcraft is the female leader of the survival and preparedness movement. Marjorie has taught millions of people how to grow an abundance of food in a grid-down situation, even if you have no experience, are older, or out of shape.
I've spent decades finding the fastest, easiest, and funnest ways for the average person to be able to grow a lot of food. I've created a step-by-step process that's so simple that even kids to elders have been using it in order to grow a lot of their own food. And you can too, even if you have no experience, you're older, or you're out of shape.
Growing your own food is like printing your own money. Get started today.
If you haven't noticed, gold has reached a new high, all-time highs actually, and keeps going up every day. Why is that? It's because precious metals are a long-time historical store of value. And if you own a portfolio and you have assets in the fiat currencies, i.e. stocks, bonds, cash, or whatever, you're vulnerable to hyperinflation, which is coming as our debt explodes another trillion every 90 days. It's really scary. So how do you protect yourself? Go to Advisor Metals. If you look on any of our cdm.press sites, about halfway down, there's an ad for Advisor Metals. Click on it, fill out the form for your contact info, and Ira Bishotsky will contact you and talk to you. It's an easy conversation. There's no sales pitch. He's completely verified by us. He has a regulatory background we've checked into. We've checked with his bankers. We've checked with his IRA custodians for metals, and we can highly recommend Advisor Metals and IRA. So go to Advisor Metals. If you call them directly, tell them we sent you at CDM, and he'll definitely take care of you. But protect your portfolio because you really need to. It's coming. Thank you. So, Kurt, Romania's a big deal, right? I mean, we're building the biggest NATO base on the Black Sea. It's obviously a globalist stronghold. They stopped the duly elected president from ruling the country, and now they're banning other candidates. It's a mess, man. What's happening in Romania? And that's where you're from, so you know it well.
Romania is essentially a globalist puppet state. It lost its sovereignty, years ago when it submitted to, EU and NATO tyranny, really. There's a lot of good people fighting there to preserve it, but unfortunately, it's really at this stage, unless the United States puts very strong pressure on the Romanian government to allow free and fair elections to take place, Romania is a lost cause. I mean, there is no one else that can provide the kind of support that would be needed except for the United States. And sadly, that we've had people saying good things again, but not taking any serious action. I mean, really, if it were any other country outside of a NATO country that was canceling elections and doing what they're doing over there, that country would be on the sanctions list immediately.
Yeah, it's quite, and I wonder if Trump is being pulled by the neocons saying, we need this military base. You can't change the government. We need to keep these people here. But you're right. I mean, there is no moral authority anymore if you don't deal with Romania and what's happening there. I mean, it's a complete, we've seen the State Department actions in the Balkans, which were pretty nefarious against MAGA and against us, and literally against us in Albania and elsewhere. And, now this whole regime is controlling Romania, I think, to provide leverage against Russia in the Black Sea. Am I correct?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's part of it, but it's also, I mean, what happened in Romania while all of this was going on with the canceling, the not allowing, the leading candidate on the ballot, while all that's going on, the interim president, who's really a dictator because he's totally unelected and, just seized power when, and appointed really by the globalists from outside the country. He went ahead and signed a decree according citizenship after 3 years to any migrants who are coming in. So they're buying full into the EU migrant policy, which is, of course, what they hate Orban and Hungary for, is for not allowing, all of these Muslims to really be brought into Hungary and to, and now this is what's happening in Romania. So you're really undermining the whole culture and fabric of the country by pursuing this policy.
Look at Ireland, look at the UK, look at France, look at Germany.
Yeah.
I mean, and I heard something really disturbing the other day from, I think it was a Ukrainian official who said, well, we have a population issue because we've killed them all and half of them have left, but we need to bring in, Muslim migrants. So that was really disturbing to me. I mean, that's been the goal all along, is to depopulate Ukraine and replace the population to a non-Christian population, I think.
Same thing in Romania, and the same thing they would love to do in Hungary if they give it a chance. So far Hungary's been able to resist it, but it's going to be the same policy in Serbia if they manage to install a globalist regime there also. I mean, they have really done everything they can to destabilize and undermine the region, and you have people directing the policy in the region overall, in Romania and the Balkans, that have no understanding of the history of the region whatsoever. They're coming in with a totally US-centric view of the world, which really means they're completely ignorant of any history and any cultural differences. And sadly, they're the people that are guiding this destructive policy that's only going to lead to continued blood. It has only led to bloodshed, but will continue to lead to bloodshed in the region. It's really one of the most dangerous times right now that there is, and the problem, I think, is partly because the Trump administration has so many things going on at the same time.
Yeah, that's part of it, but part of it, there's people in there who don't want to stop it.
That's the other part, absolutely. 100%. You have a lot of the old guard still in there, and we're not. You and I both know this has nothing to do with Republicans or Democrats. This is the establishment that's on either side. So it's they're united in this this destructive policy. So it's dangerous times, and we have to really be aware, and it's important that that the people who care are keep up to date with what's going on, and you really have to search for your news, which is why CDM exists, because
Mhm.
unfortunately for the most part, what the access that the average American has to information is really from that globalist perspective. That
All
is,
of it, literally all of it, especially in the Balkans. And I think I mean, there may be some, Serbian focused sites that are in another language, but I don't think there's another Balkan site that has a non-globalist view of that very globalized region.
no, not really. It's really dangerous, and it was interesting. Tucker had an interview on yesterday, I think, or something, with Rick Sanchez, who
Mhm.
was on.
I haven't watched that yet, but yeah.
Yeah, very, very good interview, very revealing. But just talking about the fundamental thing that RT is banned in the U.S., and literally he was working for RT at the time when the Biden administration shut it down, and essentially was faced either you stop working with them or you're going to be put under arrest. So I mean, how scary is that? And just the fact that if we're a real democracy, we can't support a different point of view or
Yeah.
info.
How fragile are we, right?
Yeah, I mean, our people are that stupid that they can't discern for themselves, the information that's out there. So it's
Well, they had to stop RT because look at what's going on, the demonization of Russians over the last several years. They had to shut down that viewpoint, right?
Oh, we understand why they're doing it. It doesn't make it right, though, what they're doing.
Yeah. So, that's an interesting point. I think that may be on the table with these negotiations as kind of a.
I hope so. Yeah.
I saw Putin unfroze yesterday Western assets in Russia, which is obviously a gift to the Trump administration to try to move this process along in return for whatever they want. And I would bet that RT coming back online would be part of that. Let's talk books for a minute. First of all, we have the Manhattan.press, which is our Manhattan site, and it has a Manhattan bestsellers list. And if you go to the top of the list, or top of the Manhattan.press, let me just bring that up 1 second. The Manhattan.press, and you go to the top of it, there is the Manhattan bestsellers list. And if you click on that, you get all of these books: editors' picks, children's, politics, adult fiction, adult nonfiction, history, just everything. Tell us about this list, Kurt, because you're the guy that puts it together, or at least your team.
Yeah.
So tell us what that is.
Well, this is a very accurate accounting of actual book sales in the United States. It has no political bias of any kind. You'll see, best-selling books by liberal or Democrat authors, as well as Republican ones or just independent ones. There's no political bias whatsoever. This is strictly going by numbers, sales numbers, and what is really driving the book market right now. So if you really want, and the New York Times best-selling list is a joke because it's completely manipulated and controlled. This one is not. This is based strictly on.
It's just simply the best-selling books. What a concept.
Yeah.
So, and you can, if you want to, and I'll just put a plug in here. If you want to support free media, don't go, if you need to buy a book for work or a gift or for business or whatever, school, don't buy it from Amazon, buy it from us. Just go to at the top of cdm.press. There's the CDM bookshop. You can go there and buy any book that's available anywhere on Amazon. Just buy it through us. We make a few bucks, and it helps us over time. We want to grow that business. So I know you put a lot of work into this list, and also the editor's picks, etc. But also tell us about Vindicta Press. I want to go there for a second.
Well, we set up Vindicta Publishing to together with you in order to really create a site that can publish books about politics, history, culture, and things that subjects that other places won't publish or won't really look at. So it's really important. I mean, we have several great titles that have come out, including your book on the Iranian resistance, which is very timely right now, given everything that's going on in the region, paying the price. There's a great book on Ukraine as well, which is by our French colleague, which is
right here. Here it is, Ukraine: A Warning to the World, at historyofbooks.com.
And which really goes in depth into the roots of this whole conflict and what's going on in the region. I mean, if there's a book that you really want to read to understand the Ukraine situation, that is the book to pick up.
Yeah, definitely.
But that's really the purpose, is really to have a publishing platform that isn't afraid to publish things that other publishing houses are fearful of publishing, or just won't publish for whatever.
Yeah. And to that point, paying the price. I mean, the Iranian resistance has been demonized by the U.S. government under, multiple presidents, and also by the media. And so you don't really know how to take down the regime from the inside, and not from, a war, which we're seeing now. The best way to do that is support the MEK, the Iranian resistance. And you can find out about them with this book, Paying the Price: The Untold Story of the Iranian Resistance, available anywhere, or you can get a signed copy at historyofbooks.com. So what other books are really timely right now that you put out, even through History of Books?
Well, right now, I mean, we put out a book every week at least, because we're doing over 60 titles a year. Right now we just came out with a book that which is actually in association with Vindicta. It's just not listed under the Vindicta imprint because it's of the subject matter, which is Christianity. So it's under a Christian imprint, but it's by Professor Jason Hill, a very well-known academic commentator, and it's called Letters to God from a Former Atheist. It's a very powerful, moving book, and it just
what's the name of that imprint? I'll bring that up.
History of Christian. I don't think it's on.
It's not on the website. Okay.
It's a new thing because
you
kind of have to separate out Christian titles in order to reach that market.
Right.
Just the way the book business is. But it is available on the website, the book itself.
Okay,
yes.
I'll bring that up. Yeah, hold on.
The print isn't, but the book itself is available on the website. It's available at all major book retailers. Just received a fabulous review in the Federalist on Friday.
Really?
Yes.
Really? Yes. Interesting.
Yeah. And I know he's going to be coming on some of your shows here soon. He just was on Caravan to Midnight week before last. So he's making the rounds right now, and it is a very powerful book for anyone that has dealt with spiritual crisis in their life. And,
his story is really disturbing and uplifting at the same time. I mean, what he went through, I guess, from a history of abuse and sexuality, and then where he ended up, is pretty phenomenal. I mean, I have to say, I've had him with you here in my home and for events, and his story is pretty damn powerful.
Yeah, no, he's a wonderful man and a very renowned scholar. And this is a book that really, everybody should pick up and read, because it's a powerful story that will move you and inspire you at the same time.
Yeah, and it's called Letters to God by Jason Hill at historyofbooks.com. What else, Kurt? Anything else you want to get out to the audience here?
Just whatever you can. We certainly appreciate the support at historyofbooks.com, of course, because again, you're bypassing all the middlemen. You're bypassing Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all of the big corporate giants. When you're purchasing directly from the publisher. So it's really important, and it's also important to support independent publishing in general, because there is less and less of it out there, because they are getting bought up by the big corporate giants, and once that happens, of course, then they become part of the corporate media.
Yeah, and we have made the promise that we're going to keep this going. So if you support us now, we're not going to disappear. We're not going to flip it. I want to bring up my recent book, not recent book, but recent publishing, Through You Currency, which is my first novel. and the other Connor Murray novels are going to be out soon.
Yep.
And I get some really the two comments I get on Currency was I stayed up all night to read it and it should be a movie, and that feeling of just not wanting to stop reading. So if you like history, if you like really understanding, and the other comment I get is that I feel like I read a great book, but I got a degree in finance at the same time. So really,
it's so prescient for what's going on in the world today. So I mean, it really speaks to it's like you, in many ways, you anticipate when you wrote this, you anticipated a lot of the things that are happening right now.
Yeah, it's extremely prescient and still very, 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 very timely, and will give you an idea of the dangers financially that the U.S. faces in the West. But still, it's a fantastic story, and it's just that feeling of not wanting to stop reading. And I wanted to on the Paying the Price book by on the Iranian resistance. This is a comment from Lara Logan, the great journalist Lara Logan. This important book comes at a critical time for the opposition, which is growing from strength to strength, even as streets across the country run with their blood. That's from Lara Logan. And this is from General Paul Vallely. This story by L Todd is at once emotional, disturbing, yet uplifting as we see those yearning to throw off the yoke of totalitarianism give their all. Major General U.S. Army Paul Vallely, retired. So yeah, there's a lot there, Kurt.
Just plug my own book for a minute too, if I could.
Go for it.
Dracul of the Father, which is won the award for best biography the year before last, and it is the true history of the father of the historical Dracula, the actual original Dracula, who really was the namesake for the family. But it is a very in-depth biography, but written in a style that's very easy for people to read and understand. And Dracula is a very fascinating character, but it's also really interesting for what's going on and what we talked about earlier, with what's going on in the Balkans and things. This book really gets you into the history of that. And you can draw a lot of parallels with what was happening back in the 15th century when he was ruling to what's going on today, and just the great power politics and all the things that are happening. So yeah, I hope people check that out as well.
Kurt, thank you. We'll have you back. I love having you on because you're just a wealth. You're like a walking encyclopedia of Eastern European history. So
thank you very much. Nice to be here.
All right, take care.
It's News from the Edge. It's Output with John Ritchie and L Todd Wood.
Well, in the case of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, these are two medications that have been FDA approved for use in humans for decades. They are very, very inexpensive. Interestingly, available over the counter in almost every other country other than the US and Canada. You can just walk into a pharmacy and buy them like we buy Tylenol in much of the world because they're that safe. And we've known for decades that ivermectin has very strong antiviral properties. It has anti-inflammatory properties, and both ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine are what we call zinc ionophores. They help to move zinc from the bloodstream into the cell, which is where it needs to be in order to fight off a virus. So lots of application for these, and we have every reason to believe that those drugs also will likely have some efficacy against H5N1 or a number of other respiratory viruses that we may meet down the road.
Our world is changing rapidly. Many crucial systems we depend upon are collapsing. And the most important system that is failing is the food supply.
Mr. President, this Council is more than aware of the multiple challenges and threats the world is facing today. But the threat of famine, people starving slowly to death, must be a red line.
These food prices are going to keep going up and up, and they're going to keep feeding excuse after excuse, narrative after narrative.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to get off that treadmill and start getting more autonomous with your own food growing.
You want to make sure that you can eat, because frankly, food is the biggest issue as we are going through these transitions.
But amidst the chaos, there is a path to resilience. Marjorie Wildcraft is the female leader of the survival and preparedness movement. Marjorie has taught millions of people how to grow an abundance of food in a grid-down situation, even if you have no experience, are older, or out of shape.
I've spent decades finding the fastest, easiest, and funnest ways for the average person to be able to grow a lot of food. I've created a step-by-step process that's so simple that even kids to elders have been using it in order to grow a lot of their own food. And you can too, even if you have no experience, you're older, or you're out of shape.
Growing your own food is like printing your own money. Get started today.
So welcome back to Output. By the way, we're going to be rebranding this show. It's going to be called The Skiff. It's going to be done by the end of the month. The Skiff is the special compartmental or secure communications information facility. We're really driving the theme of bringing you intel that most people don't know and what you need to. It's like a mission brief. And so that's the focus of the show. And we're going to tighten that up and make it really just a fun, informative intel briefing show. So stay tuned for the rebranding of the Skiff. Sign up for our no ad subscriptions. You know, people don't like ads on their computer or on their desktops or their phone, especially pop-up ads, etc. But you know what? We're kicked off most ad networks, so we have to make money. So the ones we do have, we have to put them on all the sites. So if you don't like ads, you can pay us $10 a month. Just go to our no ad subscription, top right, subscribe with no ads on cdm.press, and you can get access to all 13 of our sites, like the Balkan, like the Manhattan, and get access to all this content with no advertisements popping up. It's $10 a month or $100 a year. We get a lot of good feedback on that. So please support us that way. It's a great way to support free media and support your grandchildren's future, because that's what's coming, right? I mean, if we don't save the republic, our offspring will not do well. And so that's what we're trying to do, and we owe it to those who have gone before us to do that. And I have gotten word that the JFK files are going to be released this afternoon, and there's going to be major revelations. So we're going to be all over that. So as soon as that drops, go to cdm.press. We'll have it up. So that is coming, and we'll see what happens. Who knows? It's been a long time, right? 70 years. So stay tuned for that. And there is also coming today news from the phone call with Putin and Trump, who are supposed to talk this afternoon. Possible Ukraine news. Who knows what's going to happen? But we're going to be on that as well. So if you put cdm.press in your daily scan, do it morning, noon, and night. And that's the best way you can help us, is help grow our traffic. Tell your friends, wow, I found this great news site. It's literally global news with reporters all over the world. You know, we can't cover everything, but what we do cover is really impactful. We're not going to cover, you know, the latest, you know, mic drop with Trump or Carolyn Levitt or Biden or whatever. But we are going to cover what you need to know to get through your day and be effective and informative and smart in your dealings with other people and come across that way. I had an awesome opportunity to interview Michael Yan down in Panama. We played a little bit of that the other day. I'm going to play some more of this now. And so you can just get this is a story we're going to be on. We're going to stay on it. And, you know, so I want to play some more of this so you get a feeling of what's really happening in Panama.
Years later, but the Spaniards were doing a little bit of cross between the seas. Anyway, the Scottish showed up a couple hundred years later, and they started their Darien scheme, right? And they raised a bunch of bonds. This is very important for Scotland. Scottish don't know this history, right? So most of them don't know this. It's very important for Scotland. They tried to make a path between the seas. The Scottish did, and they raised a bunch of money from Scottish people. And they started one down in Darien, right? New Caledonia. Caledonia is the old name for Scotland, right? and they also called it New Edinburgh. But in any case, 2,000 dead Scottish people later, they were bankrupt, and attacks from the Indians, attacks from the Spaniards, and attacks from yellow fever and everything else under the sun, and so they went bankrupt. And so in 1707, that's when the United Kingdom absorbed Scotland because they went bankrupt in the Darien Gap in Panama, right? So that is why Scotland is part of the United Nations, but United Kingdom today, because they went bankrupt in the Darien, right? And then came, of course, the French. They tried to build a canal across the Darien, well, this was called the Darien Isthmus. The Isthmus of Panama, the Panama Isthmus, is also called the Isthmus of Darien, or the Darien Isthmus, right? And so they tried to build their canal across the Darien Isthmus, and then of course they had succeeded with the Suez, and de Lesseps, who was so successful there, you see his name all over Panama City here. He was, his name was appellated to this canal project, and France went bankrupt. So then the United States came and tried to do the impossible, and people were like, French could do it. Americans have no chance, and did it. And so this canal opened in 1914, and it's been, this is a huge pork chop ever since then. Everybody's always going to fight for Panama is what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
This is strategic high ground. It's this, right? And of the 7 major choke points in the world, this is probably certainly the number one for the United States. Then you've got the Suez, you've got the Strait of Malacca, very important for the world and Asia in particular. Strait of Hormuz, of course, Bab el-Mandeb. You've got the 7 major. This is the most important one for us. Of course, everybody wants the northern route. I went up there and looked at some of that last year. I was in northern Canada looking at. But the bottom line is, this is so important because this is a path between the continents, and they are building a road to Colombia, right? A lot of people say that's not true. You can disregard those people because they don't know what they're talking about. I'm the one that found it. I physically found it, right? It's there. I photographed it many times. I've been down there. I was just down there again about a month ago. They are 100% building 2 bridges. They're heading straight to Colombia. If you line up and take your compass out and then plot it out on the map, the azimuth goes right down the old route that people talked about for hundreds of years of building a road to Colombia. It's right there. It's 100%, 0 degrees deviance from the route to Colombia, right? It's not off to this little.
And that's Chinese owned, right? Or what?
Actually, nobody will admit to actually who's funding it. I came up and I talked with the Panamanian government. The first thing people in the government said, and I think that they honestly didn't even know it was being built, the ones I first talked with. And they're like, we're not building any bridges down there. I'm like, yes, you are. And they're like, no, we're not. I'm like, yes, you are. And they're like, we're the government. We know we're not. And I'm like, you see the mud on my boots? I was just there 6 hours ago. I just drove up from there's 2 bridges you're building, right? I just drove up from there. I found them. They're 100%. They're under construction as of this morning, right? And they've been being constructed for a long time because I found them down there, and I've been looking for them for a long time because I thought that you would eventually do this. And so I found it by predictive. I just kept going and looking and going and looking, and there's always a dry hole. And then one day I found they're actually building right now.
So what did they say to that when you confronted them?
They're like, So in any case, people kept denying it. So I started taking people down. I took Epoch Times. I took Ann Vandersteel. I took Brett Weinstein. I took Dr. Chris Martinson. I took Masako Ganaha from Japan. I took Laura Loomer. I took all these people down. And then it was undeniable, right? And so, when Epoch Times did their stories, and Laura Loomer and Ann Vandersteel and Brett Weinstein and Chris Martin and Chris Martinson and Masako Ganaha, you couldn't deny it anymore, right? And so it's being built. So they're going to open that road to Colombia. That's really obvious. And the Chinese have a book called Panama, the Belt and Road it's called China's Belt and Road Initiative. Panama, right? You can find it online. It's a soft cover book, and it maps out going straight through the Darien, right? So when I was down there looking, it wasn't like random looking. It was very informed, targeted looking, right? And because I'm like, if I were going to build a road down here, it would be down the road that was already surveyed like hundreds of years ago, right? It would be that route, right? And it would be the ant trail that the ants have already found would be the logical way to do it, right? And that's exactly what they're doing. That's why I read all these old books, man. Everything you need to read is in old books. I mean,
yeah.
You see this stuff? It's all in here. It's all in here. It's all
So,
in these old books, man. You know?
I think we must be brothers from another mother, because I think that that Americans know nothing about the history. I've done a lot of work up the Caribbean chain of all the history there and the fights between all the European powers. You know, where does bacon come from? It was a French word because the pirates were eating pork on the island Tortuga, and the French called it bouchon, and that's where buccaneer comes from. So all this history is down there, man. I mean, it's fascinating. So good on you for doing that.
And you know why there's pigs all over the world, right? It's because they were seeding the pigs on the islands, and that's why a lot of Pacific Islanders many were cannibals. That's why they call human flesh long pig, because it tastes like pork.
Wow.
So next time you're eating bacon, think about that long pig. Pig.
So this cost us what, close to 40,000 lives in Panama?
No, that's nonsense.
Really?
Actually, I've got a book right here. It happens to be on the 1913. This is the report to the Panama Canal Commission, actually. And it talks about the casualties in here. Of course, the canal opened months later.
It's news.
So
from the
we
edge.
are in the fact.
It's Output with John Ritchie and L Todd Wood.
Through the pandemic, we can never be caught unprepared again. And so many Americans, when COVID hit, they had nothing in the house. The stores were shut down, and doctors' offices were shut down. And even if doctors prescribed drugs, hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, pharmacists wouldn't fill the prescriptions. That was a nightmare.
Now the situation is much worse. We have these horrible supply chain problems. In our emergency medical kit at the Wellness Company, we have 8 prescription drugs that are all potentially life-saving.
Most people have died with COVID. They died in the hospital because they didn't receive early treatment.
Every American family should have one of these.
I can tell you the Wellness Company kit is the answer.
Watching my friends gain more and more weight. And then eventually, I got to tell you, this is a little dark, but bad diet literally killed my whole crew.
Wow.
Diabetes, a stroke. I mean, all kinds of stuff. It's like, you had a stroke? You're not even 50 years old. You guys got to quit eating this stuff. Your body knows what's what. You're not conscious of this. But that's why people will go to the refrigerator and they'll grab this and that and the other and put together this outrageously elaborate combination of foods. Your body's trying to reach balance. Unbeknownst to us, our bodies are always trying to reach homeostasis. You can't eat all of this stuff and expect to live a long time. And one thing led to another, and I went, forget this. We're going to make our own product. So we partnered with one of the world's top 3 biochemists where nutrition-specific study is concerned. I said, all I want is the best nutritional and immune support product in the world. So we mixed it in yogurt. It's a powder. I got a bag of it here. I keep one on the console all the time, just so I can show people.
Yeah.
And it's a powder. Now, this is not candy. This is hardcore nutrition. And sugar is an enemy. And most people do not know that the reason these bellies are showing up on people all over the place, your body makes fat to store the toxins it can't get rid of. So it just puts them over here. But I can tell you this, you take this for 30 days and then lay off of it for 2 or 3 days, and you'll go, good grief, give me some more. Skin, nails, hair growing back. Cut yourself and it heals in half the time.
Sorry about that. Welcome back to Output. This is L Todd Wood. We're really proud of our sponsors, and we work hard to bring you products that we really trust and you can trust. because we want to grow that trust with you over time, so that you trust what we say, to use the word trust again. So one of those new products we have is Alp by Tucker Carlson. It's a new nicotine patch or chew thing you put in your mouth. And for people who like Zen or nicotine pouches, we think it's a much better product. It tastes better. It's moist. It's just a better experience all around. And Tucker flew me up to his studio in Maine, and we did an hour-long interview with Fox Nation a while back. And I've been on his show many times, and we're really proud to carry his product. So I'm going to play this new funny ad. I think it's a good one.
So we are in the factory in Kentucky. This is Alp World HQ, and we are at the end of the packing line. So I'm going to show you how it works. We have the card, throw that in there. There's a packing slip, and then you have the Alp. And 4, but that seems honestly like a lot. 3 now, but it's good. These pack a punch that, for a normal nicotine brand, it'd be like 8. We think 3 is fine. Next one. Again, 4. Let's throw 3 in just to keep it fair. Okay? There you go. So you can see you can get fast at this. And really, it's just a matter of repetition. This is kind of the assembly line that, Henry Ford devised so long ago.
Tucker stealing all the Alp.
So please support us with CDM pouch, alppouch.com/CDM. And if you're a Zen user, don't use the woke product anymore. Use Alp and tell your friends, and go to alppouch.com/CDM. With that, support all our other sponsors. Go to the top list on cdm.press. You can see them all there. And we really appreciate your viewing on Output. We're going to be rebranding to the Skiff by the end of the month. But we want to make this show really top-notch as far as an informative intel briefing that you need to start your day and to be the smartest guy in the room. So continue to watch us. Tell your friends. Help us spread the word. And we'll see you tomorrow morning. We're 10 a.m. to noon Eastern a.m., Monday through Friday. And then on the weekends, we have the Georgia show. We have the Colorado show. And we also have all our military shows and other long-form interviews on CDTV. You can find that on cdm.press. We are the new global news without the globalist spin, a global wire service, and becoming a network. So please support us, tell your friends, and we'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Thank you.